I try to avoid that, but I think it's unavoidable. I can't do this forever. I've been doing it since I was 21. When you get to your 80s, you say, hey, that's enough. A terrible tragedy has changed Robert Redford in ways that no one could have imagined. As the famous actor approaches his 90th birthday, the weight of personal loss and hardship bearing heavily on him, what challenges and events has he faced behind the scenes? Join us as we reveal the heartbreaking truth about Robert Redford's life and how his struggles and quiet strength have made him the man he is today. Robert Redford's name has long been linked to Hollywood's success, charm, and charisma, and for decades people have praised his roles in classic movies like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and the Redford's life wasn't just about his many successes on the big screen, it was also about heartbreak and personal challenges. He was born on August 18, 1936, in Santa Monica, California. His parents, Charles Redford, who worked as a milkman before becoming an accountant, and Martha Hart, who supported her son's career, raised him. As his 90th birthday approaches, we remember the struggles and losses that made him the man he was and shaped his view on life and fame. Tragically, when he was only 18, his mother Martha died. It was a terrible loss, and he later admitted that he had taken her for granted when he was younger. This feeling of regret stayed with him for years. Martha's death happened after complications during the birth of twin girls who tragically did not survive. Even though doctors told her not to get pregnant again, she wanted a bigger family, which unfortunately led to a blood disorder that eventually killed her. Redford's mother died when he was a teenager. Her death left a big hole in his life and was the start of a series of personal problems that would last his whole life. After his mother's death, he struggled with grief and loneliness. He found comfort in the arts, which led him to Hollywood. But his path to fame wasn't easy. As a teenager, he was rebellious and often got into trouble for things like drag racing and small thefts. During this time, he had run-ins with the law and was arrested for having stolen jewelry. He later said that this experience was a wake-up call that made him more determined to change his life. Despite these problems, he was able to get a sports scholarship to the University of Colorado and join the baseball team. However, his love of art soon overtook his interest in sports, and his newfound freedom at college led him down a bad path. He started drinking heavily, which cost him his scholarship, and having to drop out of school was another turning point in his life. He was determined to find a new direction, so he moved to Europe to study painting. The experience opened his eyes and gave him a new sense of purpose. He eventually came back to the US to pursue acting, which was a decision that would forever change the course of his life. Even though his path wasn't easy, his bravery through hard times made him a lasting Hollywood star. What hard times did he face in his life? As much as everyone admired Robert, he had serious problems with his family life that were not in the public eye. In 1958, he married Lola Van Wagenen. Soon after, their baby son Scott died of illness, which was especially hard because they were already having money problems. Redford later said that this was one of the worst times of his life, but he and Lola held on to each other and decided to keep building their family. They went on to have 3 more children. Their second son, Jaime, was born early and had serious breathing problems due to Henle membrane disease, which put his life in danger. Against all odds, Jaime lived, but the experience left deep scars on the family, and Redford carried those worries with him for years. As a father, seeing his kids struggle was one of the hardest things for him. He once said that nothing hurt him more than seeing his kids in pain. This was especially true with Shauna, Jamie, and Amy. Jamie had more health problems as a teen, but Jim got ulcerative colitis, a long-term illness that later led to cirrhosis of the liver. When he was 31, he had a liver transplant, which gave his family hope, but complications meant he had to have another transplant. The stress and worry were hard on Redford and his family. Even though he was a busy actor and director, he was always there for his son while he was filming a quiz show in New York, and he flew to Omaha every weekend to be with Jaime in the hospital. As a filmmaker and environmental activist, Jim eventually got better and built a meaningful life for himself. His marriage to Lola Van Wagenen was once thought to be one of the strongest in Hollywood. They got married before he became a global star and worked hard to build a life together, but their relationship was shaped by both personal tragedies and his demanding career in Hollywood. The early years of their marriage were hard. They had only $300 to their names, but they were determined to make a stable life. Losing their first child, Scott, left them feeling empty. He was away from home for long periods of time as his fame grew, leaving his wife to take care of the house and the kids' health problems while he worked on his career. Lola gave up her own dreams to support the family, which was a heavy load for her. Later, when his career reached new heights, big movies like The Natural and Out of Africa kept him away from home for months at a time. This distance made their relationship worse, and after 28 years of marriage, they split up in 1985. In a 2001 interview, he talked about how he felt about the split. While the public sees Robert Redford as the star of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and a man who has achieved fame and fortune, he and Lola remained close friends and were bonded by their deep love for their children. When he thought back on their time together, he expressed his sadness not only over the breakup, but also over how it had affected their family. What deeper heartbreak did Robert Redford experience when tragedy struck his children? Redford's real life is much more complicated than the glitz and glamour he shows on screen. Behind his success, he has had deep personal struggles and losses that have shaped his journey. One of the most heartbreaking events in his life was when his son Jamie died at age 58 from liver cancer. This was another painful event for Redford, who had already been through a lot. The bond between father and son was strong, built on their love of stories and protecting the environment. Even though he had 2 liver transplants and many health problems, the environmental activist's life was cut short, leaving a hole in his father's heart that could never be filled. Redford, who values his privacy, chose to grieve quietly with his family at his ranch in Utah. His family also asked for privacy during this difficult time. In a statement, publicist Cindy B. described Jaime as a loving son, husband, and father who touched everyone he met with his warmth for Redford's death. Adding this son's death to the many sorrows he had already experienced was a painful reminder of how fragile life is. The grief of losing a child is unimaginable, and for him it wasn't the first time he had felt this way. He had talked about how painful it was to see his children suffer, and Jaime's death brought this to the forefront again. Even as the world mourned with him, he showed that fame can't protect someone from life's hardest challenges. Redford and Lola's first son, Scott, died at just 10 weeks old due to sudden infant death syndrome. The young couple, who were already having a hard time financially, was crushed by the loss. At the time, SIDS wasn't well understood, leaving both of them with many unanswered questions and years of silent grief. Losing their baby left a deep scar on their marriage, and he rarely talked about it in public, choosing to keep his pain private. Only years later, through interviews and memoirs, he talked about how deeply it affected him. He quietly supported SIDS research in the hopes that other families wouldn't have to go through the same heartbreak. This trauma left him afraid of losing the people he loved most. He became protective of his remaining children, a feeling that grew stronger after another terrifying event involving his daughter, Shauna. While driving near Salt Lake City, Shauna's car lost control and fell into the icy Jordan River. Luckily, a brave bystander caught her and pulled her out, dove into the freezing water to save her. Even though her father was relieved that she was safe, he was reminded again of how fragile life is. As if the deaths of his son and daughter were not bad enough, his daughter Shauna's fiancé Sid Wells was murdered in 1983. Wells, a journalism student at the University of Colorado, was found dead in his apartment with a gunshot wound to the head. His roommate Thismica was the main suspect, but because of a lack of SMA was freed and then disappeared, leaving the murder case unsolved. This unsolved crime had a big effect on the Redford family. Shauna, who was deeply in love with Sid, was left heartbroken and haunted by the unanswered questions about his death. Redford himself was deeply affected and often thought about how the murder of his daughter's fiancé felt like another cruel turn of events. Even though police are trying again to bring SMA to justice, the case remains cold, casting a dark shadow over the family. Robert Redford's emotional toll when friends and family died suddenly put his strength to the test in a friendship like no other in 1950. Robert Redford had already started to make a name for himself in Hollywood. His first big break came in the Broadway play Barefoot in the Park, where he starred with Elizabeth Ashley. His good looks and natural talent quickly caught the attention of filmmakers, which led to his first big movie role in Inside Daisy Clover in 1965, opposite Natalie Wood. Redford and Wood became close while working together, and their friendship would last throughout Redford's career. Sadly, Natalie Wood drowned while on a boating trip with her husband Robert Wagner and actor Christopher Walken in 1981. Redford, who had become close to Wood while working with her, was heartbroken. He had admired her both as a co-worker and a friend, and her death was a heavy blow that made him think about how fragile life is. Redford later said that he valued the real Natalie Wood that was beneath the fame in their movie Inside Daisy Clover. Wood helped start Redford's career, and he would always remember her with great affection. As he went through the ups and downs of his own life, he found comfort and strength in his friendships, especially one with fellow actor Paul Newman. They met on the set of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and had an undeniable chemistry on screen, which carried over into their personal lives. They respected each other and had a good sense of humor. They were known for pulling pranks on each other. For example, Redford gave Newman an old, dented Porsche for his 50th birthday, and Newman had the car smashed and given back to Redford as a sculpture. This playful rivalry was a constant in their friendship, but it was clear that they were closer than jokes when Redford's marriage to Lola Van Wagen ended in 1985 after 28 years. Redford said that his friendship with Newman was more than just a Hollywood friendship. It was a deep brotherly connection that helped him through some of his hardest times. He also turned to Newman during personal crises, always knowing that he could count on his friend's steady presence. Sadly, Newman died in 2008 and Redford was devastated. He said that losing Newman was like losing a brother, and he often thought about the laughter and joy they shared over the years, which was very different from the grief he had felt after the deaths of Natalie Wood and Robert Redford. Paul Newman marked important emotional turning points for him, but they also showed him how important friendship was in his life. How did his complicated relationship with fame affect his career choices and his legacy in Hollywood? The cost of fame, despite his many accomplishments. Robert has always had a complicated relationship with fame. He became a Hollywood icon for his rugged good looks and undeniable charm, but he often complained about the attention that came with being a celebrity. He wanted to be less famous. He was frustrated that people saw him for his acting skills instead of how he looked. And his struggle with fame was clear when he wasn't cast as Benjamin Braddock in The Graduate because the filmmakers thought he was too good-looking to play a character who had problems with women convincingly. He once said that it wasn't a lack of talent that kept him from getting roles, but rather the way he looked. Robert Redford took charge of his career by moving behind the camera. In 1980, he directed Ordinary People and won an Academy Award for Best Director. This change helped him focus on telling stories in a new way and move away from the fake surface-level aspects of Hollywood fame. Instead of just acting in popular movies, he started to work on more meaningful projects that showed his true passions and personal values. This was a big change in his life and career that helped him find more. As he thinks back on his career, he admits that the pressure to keep up a certain public image took a big toll on him over the years. Later in his career, he became more picky about the roles he took on, picking ones that fit with his personal values. Movies like All Is Lost and The Old Man and the Gun, which he said would be his last performance, let him leave the spotlight on his own terms. His decision to retire from acting was a big deal. He wanted a quieter life away from Hollywood's constant expectations, but he knows that decades in the public eye have left their mark, and there are times when he wishes he could have lived a life away from the spotlight. Besides his acting career, one of his most lasting contributions is to independent film through the Sundance Institute, which he started in 1981. The Sundance Film Festival, which takes place every year in Park City, Utah, has become a prestigious platform for independent film. It was his dream to make a place where artists could tell their stories without being limited by commercial concerns. He believed that movies had the power to bring about change and question social norms. And it was this belief that made Sundance a cultural phenomenon that has had a huge impact on media and storytelling in general. Even though he will no longer be the public face of Sundance in 2019, he is still deeply committed to supporting the festival. The success of the festival is due in large part to Robert Redford's commitment to supporting new artists and independent voices. But how has his aging affected his career, health, and personal life? Health problems and the wear and tear of time. As Robert Redford gets closer to 90, he faces the inevitable wear and tear that time takes on the body. Known for his athletic build, he was often praised as one of Hollywood's most attractive leading men, but with age came health problems that he couldn't avoid. After years of hiking, skiing, and other outdoor activities at his Utah ranch, Redford's body started to give out from all the physical demands of his younger years. He has been open about the aches and pains that come with getting older, often talking about how his once endless energy has turned into a need for more rest. His friends and family have noticed a change in how he acts, saying that he seems more thoughtful and reflective. Redford himself has said that getting older the physical changes he's been through are matched only by the emotional toll of losing friends and family over the years. The deaths of close friends like Paul Newman and others from his filmmaking days have left him feeling lonely. He doesn't talk about it much, but it's clear from the way he now lives a quieter life, even though he still works on his art and environmental projects. People around him have noticed that he's not as active as he used to be. Despite these problems, he stays strong and fights for the things he believes in, like protecting the environment. He sees this as part of his legacy, and through his work with the Sundance Institute and his dedication to independent film, he makes sure that his impact on the industry will last long after he's gone. However, it's clear that this Hollywood legend's almost 90 years have left their mark. How have his struggles shaped him into the person he is today? Despite the glitz and glamour that made up a lot of Redford's public persona, his personal life was filled with deep sadness and loss. The deaths of his mother and children, the deaths of close friends, and the end of his marriage are all events that will stay with him forever. But he has shown courage by using his pain to fuel his passions and has become more reflective, often talking about the lessons he has learned along the way. He knows that fame brought him money and attention, but it also came with a price that he often doesn't want to pay. His decision to stop acting and focus on his personal life shows that he wants peace after a lifetime in the spotlight. Now he finds comfort in the simple pleasures of life, spending time with his family and grandchildren, working on conservation projects, and thinking about a life that has been anything but normal. Many people will always remember him as the handsome Sundance Kid, the charming Jay Gatsby, or the fearless investigative journalist in All the President's Men. But for those who know his story, he is much more than that. He is a man who has faced life's hardest challenges with grace, a father who stood by his children in their darkest hours, and a friend who valued loyalty above all else, just as he did. As the end of his life draws near, he stands as a symbol of strength and a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming sadness, there is always a way to find redemption and peace. As he approaches his 90th birthday, his influence goes far beyond movies. He has left a lasting mark on Hollywood independent films, environmental causes, and more. As he quietly marks the start of a new year at his peaceful Utah ranch, he leaves behind a story of bravery and dedication to the causes he cares about. His life, which has been full of both happiness and challenges, is a reminder of the power of thoughts. Robert Redford has been through. What else might his problems have taught us about his life? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video that comes up. You'll enjoy it.